Welcome to another episode of Purpose Today. I'm your host, Dr. April Dobson, and I'm excited that today we will continue our very special edition on resume rewrites, resume strategies that deliver results. I know on last week we left off with methods to stand out from other candidates, and today you're going to learn about how you can tailor your resume for opportunities and the essential components of an effective resume and so much more. You don't want to miss this episode of Purpose Today, where we focus on part 2 of Standout Resumes. Stay tuned for resume rewrites, for resume strategies that deliver results right after this brief break. This episode is brought to you by the Purpose Professionals community in partnership with Purpose Today Global. The Purpose Professionals community on School exists for professionals and entrepreneurs who are intentional about aligning their profession with their purpose. If you're someone who has a desire to pivot professionally, to pursue your purpose, if you want to grow your career, if you want to develop, you want to purposely align your business with your purpose, and have the opportunity to network with other like-minded professionals, join the Purpose Professionals community on School. Again, you can network with like-minded purposeful professionals. Scan the QR code for more information on the Purpose Professionals community. Welcome back. I'm excited that today we get to continue our series for our part 2 of Standout Resumes. So we're going to talk more about resume strategies that deliver results. So if you watched part 1, we talked about, just to give you a recap, some strategies to help you to craft a winning resume. We talked about how it's important to focus on your purpose-aligned outcomes, and you can use a nice acronym to help you to ensure that you're strengthening your resume or composing your resume by remembering to focus on the right information, ensuring that the appearance is attractive to those who are reading it, that you include the right keywords, that you highlight only the transferable skills that are relevant for your purpose-aligned outcomes, and that you ensure that in your experience, you're putting all accomplishment-based statements starting with an action verb and including only those relevant facts, and ensuring that you've customized your resume for the applicant tracking systems that organizations might be using. And we talked about some methods that you could stand out from other candidates. So if you missed part 1, go back and watch episode 26, part 1, to ensure that you can get all of that valuable information that is available to all of you. So I want to pick up from where we left off last week. And so this week we're going to talk about start with the essential components of an effective resume. Now, a lot of you might know that it's important for you to ensure that your resume is easy to read. You don't want to lose the reader. You only get 6 to 10 seconds usually for the reader to decide, the recruiter, the hiring official, to decide whether or not they want to continue reading your resume. So it's very, very, very crucial that your resume is easy to read. And the way that you do that is have headers that are in bold. You want to make sure that you're using bullet points for clarity, because that makes it easy to find information in your resume. And you want to have the same formatting throughout and have formatting that is clear. Now, some people make the mistake of trying to list accomplishments second or separately within a resume, and you don't want to do that. Your accomplishments and achievements that you have should be listed within the experience section and incorporated into the experience. You want to start with an action verb, and you want to use strong action verbs that demonstrate your leadership. You want to use action verbs that demonstrate your innovation, because you want to make sure that you're standing out. And so it's very important that you're using powerful language, and you want to convey impactful results. So that's why you're using the right action verb. So I see sometimes people making the mistake of saying, completed, and using the word completed several times. And, completed is not a leadership term, right? So did you, were you innovative in some way to start the first ever of something? And if you did, then you pioneered whatever that was. Instead of saying that you wrote something, authored is a better action verb to use, right? If you led initiatives, you can use the word led or oversaw or guided. These are all words that show leadership. And you want to make sure that you are diverse in the types of action verbs that you're using for your experience. And so that's very important because you want to show the impact that you brought to the table, right? If you enhanced a program, that might be a term that you can use for some of your action verbs. And then if you conducted audits, auditing a program is very important. So think about all of the things that you've done. Think about how you can demonstrate that from a leadership standpoint. And then I want to talk more about your achievements. You want to make sure that the achievements that you highlight in your resume, that you're showing measurable successes with both quantitative and qualitative achievements. So you want to talk about the numbers. If you were a budget analyst or you were a project management, what was the value of the entire budget that you oversaw or the project that you oversaw? Was it 5 million? Was it 15 million? Was it, 150K? You want to make sure that you're demonstrating as much quantifiable information and qualitative information as possible when you talk about your achievements. And anytime you could include numbers as a percentage or as a dollar amount or as a total number to show impact, you want to do that with your accomplishments. Now, again, every experience that you list in the experience section of your resume should have accomplishment-based statements showing achievements. Now, if you want to call out 2 or 3 specific achievements that you have from that experience, then you can maybe put a notable achievement section or a notable accomplishment section within that actual experience. So at the bottom of all of the bullets, if you want to put notable achievements or notable accomplishments, you can. But again, every experience that you list should demonstrate those measurable successes in both a quantitative standpoint and from a qualitative standpoint as well. So you want to talk about how did you help to save the organization money? How did you help to save the organization time? How did you increase the revenue for the organization? How did you streamline processes? Everything that will demonstrate that to showcase those measurable successes, you want to do that. Now, we talked on our part 1 about why it's important to only include the relevant experience that aligns with your purpose aligned outcome. So if you are looking for specific opportunities that align with your purpose, all of your experience may not be relevant for what you're seeking to do. So you want to make sure that you're tailoring your background and only focusing on the experience, the skills, the transferable skills that are relevant for the vacancy announcement for that purpose aligned position that you're applying to, right? And we did talk about express and implied requirements previously. So it's very important that you're really highlighting that with the measurable successes. Now, I know I've listed this last, but this is probably the most significant thing as it relates to essential components of an effective resume, and it's the professional summary. And the reason that I'm talking about it last is because I'm hoping that as we're talking about this, and hopefully you're taking notes as you're watching this episode, that you have a very strong, compelling professional summary, because that's the introduction of your resume. And it's one of the things that will allow the reader to be motivated to continue reading beyond that 6 to 10 seconds that you have. So you want to make sure that the summary that you write highlights the unique qualifications and accomplishments that you've achieved in your career that align with what you want to secure for that purpose aligned opportunity, right? So it's very important. You want to be able to list the number of years of relevant experience, but you want to talk about what's key. Maybe in your career, you've been able to, your most notable achievement was being able to save the federal government millions of dollars. I remember in my Air Force career, when I was stationed in Germany, some recommendations that I made were implemented, and it was able to save at that time the United States Air Force millions of dollars just by making, those changes that I recommended. So you want to talk about what is critical, what appropriately shows and demonstrates that you can provide solutions for the opportunities that are purpose aligned that you're applying to, and that your unique qualifications are also expressed in that summary as well. Now, it's very important that as you're tailoring your resume, that you're tailoring it to show your expertise, to show your successes, measurable successes that you've had. And so with doing that, it is necessary to customize your resume as needed to each application. Now, because of your purpose aligned outcome, maybe there are multiple vacancy announcements that align, right? That match for you, that match your purpose aligned outcome. So you may not have to necessarily customize the resume for those 3 opportunities that are very close in nature, but sometimes there's specific nuances to opportunities that do dictate that you do that. So you want to be introspective, be reflective before you apply for an opportunity, just to really examine what is it that you're hoping to achieve, what solutions can you bring to the organization, and how can you ensure that that's highlighted with your relevant skills, your relevant experience, your relevant certifications and degrees that you've obtained, and also ensuring that the right keywords are included, especially in the skills section, that the skills that you possess that are relevant for that particular purpose aligned opportunity, that you're highlighting that. That is going to ensure that the hiring official or recruiter will give more time to reviewing your resume and consideration for you. Keep in mind that the purpose of a resume is to give you opportunities for an interview. The purpose of the resume is not for you to get hired, it's for you to secure an interview. So you want to make sure that you're highlighting the right information. And, of course, your resume will need to be tailored to the sector that you're applying to as well, because there's different requirements in the federal government than there are for nonprofit organizations or NGOs, and there's different requirements for private sector opportunities as well. So you want to make sure that you're tailoring your resume to align both with your purpose-aligned outcomes and match the requirements for the industry and, the sector that you're applying to. Now, I want to ensure that you avoid these mistakes. And I know that many of you might be familiar with these, but just over the years, throughout my experience consulting, throughout my experience as a CEO of organizations, HR organizations, and throughout my experience in government in HR, I had a lot of experience in staffing and recruitment in my federal career, both as a specialist and as a supervisory HR specialist in several different roles as a chief of both staffing and recruitment and a chief of benefits, workplace, and workforce policy. And in looking at resumes from the standpoint of staffing and recruitment, there are a lot of things that I saw as mistakes. And even as looking at resumes, hiring individuals and making recommendations and looking at resumes throughout my career at a variety of federal government agencies and at a variety of organizations, I've seen some common mistakes that I want you all to avoid. And so in order to ensure that you avoid these mistakes, it's important for you to read your resume from top to bottom, left to right, right to left, and bottom to top, because this will allow you to catch some mistakes that you may not have otherwise caught because your resume is familiar to you. And you want to ask someone else to read it for you as well. And it's important that when you're sending your resume, you're sending it as a PDF and not as a Word document. So please avoid these common mistakes. So a lot of people have, spelling errors. And when you have errors of grammar and spelling in your resume, you actually lose credibility, and there's a negative impression that the reader will have of you. So as I said, read your resume from top to bottom, left to right, right to left, and bottom to top. And then also take a look at your resume, pull it up on a mobile device, on your cell phone, and look to see if it looks the same on your cell phone. Chances are, if you sent your resume as a Word document, it may not look the same on your cell phone as it looks on a computer. So you want to make sure you check that and make sure that you're sending the PDF file and not the Word file when you're applying for positions. It's important that you use the PDF file so that it doesn't change your layout or the characters or anything of that nature. It'll look the same if you send it as a PDF. I also want to encourage you to avoid generic statements. A big mistake that I see people make is that they take a job description and copy and paste it into their resume. You do not want to do that. You want to actually ensure that you're formulating each bullet and you're putting, like I said before, quantifiable and qualitative and quantitative information in your resume. And you want to make sure that you are customizing the information as we talked about before. Don't be generic with what you're putting, and don't use a copy and paste of your PD or position description. So the other thing that I want to say is that sometimes people who have prior military experience or people who have extremely technical roles, they are very complex with what's in their resume. And they also use acronyms and other jargon that may not necessarily be widely known. Keep in mind that even if you're applying for an opportunity that's in your industry and it's something that you've been doing for a long time, you also have to get through the ATS. Oftentimes an ATS is used before a human sees it. And then also keep in mind that usually the first line of review of resumes is not going to be the hiring official. So you have people who are in HR who are reviewing the resume, and they may not be familiar with all of the technical language and technical jargon and acronyms that you might be using. So ensure that you have spelled out the acronym the first time at least, and that you're not using jargon, industry jargon. So make sure that you're using clear, straightforward language and that you're focusing directly on your accomplishments and skills so that it's clear and evident that you can provide solutions to an organization and position that you're applying to, and that you're showing how you're matching the opportunity. So when you're looking at purpose aligned roles, you're going to often bring things to the table, some unique skills and unique value that other candidates may not be bringing. Again, you want to tailor your resume. I mentioned it before, but you want to identify the key skills that you have that match your purpose aligned outcome. And when I talk about a purpose aligned outcome, I'm talking about what you would be doing to align with your purpose. And it might be several different types of opportunities. You don't want to base it on the title, because the title isn't what matters. It's what you're going to be doing. So you can start researching what aligns with your purpose, and then you can assess what are the experiences that you have, what are the strengths that you have that are crucial and key, and then highlight those based on what you have to ensure that you're showing that you align with the requirements for the position. And anything that you can show that you've solved problems related to what's needed in that position is going to be beneficial, because it aligns with your purpose. You have value that you're bringing, and so you're bringing purpose, value, impact to that opportunity. Now, again, don't copy and paste information from your job description that you've had in the past, and don't copy and paste certainly from job descriptions for opportunities that you're applying for. But you do want to at least research job descriptions so that you have an understanding of what's expected and what's needed, based on requirements within the industry, requirements in those types of opportunities, and requirements amongst various companies and employers. So you want to analyze a lot of different vacancy announcements and consider what's common. What are the commonalities that you're seeing? Because if you're seeing a lot of commonalities, if you apply for similar opportunities that don't list that that's a requirement, but you have that expertise, it might be essential to keep it in your resume as you're tailoring your resume, even if it's not expressed. And that goes back to what I had said previously on part 1 about looking at what's expressed and what's implied. And then you want to make sure that you're customizing the content of your resume to ensure that you're targeting what you have to the requirements for that particular position, and you're looking at the specific requirements across industries, across the industry, looking at specific opportunities that are, similar, and again, including what's necessary and tailoring the information that you're presenting. You may have some experience, and I'll use myself as an example because I was in Intel for the majority of the 11-year career that I had in the Air Force. And when I transitioned into human resources, although I had some experience in human resources previously from a special duty assignment, a lot of the experience that I had in Intel wasn't relevant when I made the pivot into HR. So you want to really analyze what are some of the skills that can be used. Now, I will tell you the analysis, being able to have good analytical skills and strategic thinking, that can be applied in most roles. So it's important that you keep anything related to analysis. But there were some things that were specific to national security that weren't relevant to HR that I did not need to include. So thank you for taking the time to review part 2. Over the course of this episode and the part 1 episode, you were able to see the secrets to crafting a winning resume. You were able to see that you can stand out from other candidates by highlighting your unique skills, ensuring that you have quantifiable, measurable successes that are demonstrated, showing both qualitative and quantitative accomplishments, being sure that you're tailoring your resume for opportunities that you're actually applying to. Now, if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat of the platform that you're viewing this on, and I will do my best to answer those questions for you. I do appreciate everyone who's taking the time to see part 2. It's been my distinct pleasure to be able to talk about standout resumes, to be able to talk about resume rewrites, the results that the actual way to deliver results by making the right adjustments with your resume. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are someone who you're like me, you were in a career or you're in a career and you know that it's time for you to make a pivot professionally, if you feel that it's your time to pivot, you don't know where to start, send an email to admin@purposetoday.com. Also keep in mind that the Purpose Professionals community exists for the purpose of being able to network with purposeful professionals. It also exists to give you resources that will help you to be able to pivot, to be able to grow and develop your career, to be able to purposely align your business, right? And, there's resources that we have there. We have courses available on a variety of topics, and it's a great community to be able to grow personally and professionally. So do encourage you to join the Purpose Professionals community. Now, I'm super excited about the newest episode of Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson. I had an opportunity to sit down with Dr. Matthias Ador. So I encourage you to watch that episode on Thursday, the 25th of September at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So excited about our discussion that we had on being focused in your pursuit of purpose. So thank you so much for tuning in to Purpose Today. I'm excited to even share that there are resources that are available to you. And I do have a worksheet if you're someone who has a desire to pivot. You want to pivot professionally. You have someone, maybe you're in a career that aligns with your purpose, but you know that it's time for you to grow professionally. I encourage you to consider completing the Purpose to Profession Alignment Interest Form. And I'd be happy to send you the Purpose Aligned Profession Matrix tool just as a special gift for completing that. So I'm going to put the information for those of you who are interested in completing the Purpose to Profession Alignment Interest Form. I'm going to put that, and it's also going to be on YouTube and in the comments so you can see that. But I'm going to just very briefly walk you through that Purpose to Profession Alignment Interest Form and just share some insight on that, because I think it can be beneficial to those of you who are interested in aligning your purpose with your profession. So again, this is the Purpose to Profession Alignment Interest Form, and you can scan the QR code on your screen for the Purpose Professionals community, but the link is on your screen to this form. It just has your contact information, your primary professional goals, what you desire to do, if there's any challenges that you have, and the type of program that you're interested in. Just a really quick form that you can submit, and it gives an opportunity for Purpose Today Global staff to contact you, and it gives you an opportunity for any of you who are interested in potentially aligning with your profession, with your purpose, and having support doing that, either through coaching as a group or coaching one-on-one. So thank you again for tuning in today for Standout Resume rewrites, I really appreciate you all joining on today. It's been such a joy to be able to share with you. So thank Yes, adore. So much for tuning in. A wonderful week.